afternoon, everybody. Today, we're joined by Scott, an unemployment expert at the Oregon Employment Department. He's here to walk us through some of the common points of confusion related to filing regular unemployment claims. We will also talk about how the regular unemployment claim process works from the time you file your claim until the time you get paid. We'll also try to talk through some of the common issues that cause claims to take longer to get paid, and then take your questions. Can't talk today. Please know that we cannot look into or resolve one person's own claim status in this public forum, and it is not safe to put your personal information in the chat or question boxes in this public recorded webinar that will be posted online. Please post your questions in the Q&A box and not the chat box in the Zoom meeting, and we will take as many of them as we can after we finish the discussion with Scott. So let's get started. First, yes. I think it's helpful to understand the unemployment system in general. There are some basic legal requirements about unemployment benefits, and many of those are different right now because of COVID-19. Can you talk us through that?
Certainly. The unemployment insurance system was set up in the 1930s in the wake of the Great Depression. The system has stayed pretty much the same over the decades. When it's not a pandemic like COVID-19, the unemployment system goes like this. If you work for a business and you are on their payroll, the employer pays unemployment insurance taxes. Your employer gives the employment department information about your earnings the whole time you are working there. If you lose your job through no fault of your own, you may be eligible and can file for unemployment benefits. We use your earnings information that your employer provides to us to calculate your weekly benefit payment. You can continue to file weekly claims for benefits while you remain out of work. In order to receive those benefits, you need to be able, available, and actively seeking work.
For regular unemployment benefits, the AAA means able, available, and actively seeking work. And those are all different right now if you are out of work because of COVID-19, right?
That is correct. Back a few weeks ago in April, we put a video on our online claims page, on our COVID-19 website, and on our YouTube channel that walks through these step by step. Still, we know there's important things to talk to about the common things as well. You can go back to those videos for more details. So first, when you're filling out your online claims, enter your type of work or occupation, then you get a question asking, are you looking for or willing to take or accept that type of work right now? If your employer closed due to COVID-19 and you will be back up and plan to go back to work with them when they do open, again, you will answer yes to that question. You should also not add any additional text, just yes to that question. If your employer is closed and you're not going back and they're not going to open again and you're willing to work for the same or take the same job, you should still say yes. If you say you're not actively seeking work, even if you're not looking for a job because you're going back, it starts up again. Our system takes under the old rules before COVID-19 and it holds up your benefits, or you can be found ineligible for benefits.
Thanks. So that covers a key point on the actively seeking work requirement. What's different about the way you make your claim when it comes to being able and available to work?
Before COVID-19, you would be found not available for work if you were home caring for your children while the child care is closed. Now that's different. The system also asks if there is any reason why you cannot begin full-time work right now. If your child care or care facility where your kids go to or dependents would go during the summer is closed due to the COVID-19 and they have to be at that place for you to do your job, we know that's the reason why you cannot begin work right now. Still in the system, you would say no, there's no reason why you cannot begin full-time work. If there's a COVID reason that you cannot begin full-time work right now and you say yes to the question, the system takes it under our old way and you potentially could be denied benefits.
Are there any reasons that you would say you can't begin work right now and say yes to that question?
If you cannot begin full-time work right now and it's a non-COVID-19 reason, you need to tell us that. For example, if you can't begin work right now because you're in the hospital for surgery or you're having a baby or attending an online class, for something different than that you're planning on doing, there may be other reasons not related to COVID-19 that might prevent you from being available for work.
There are so many people who didn't lose their jobs completely, but their hours got cut way back. What are their options?
people do have options if they're unemployment, if they're working less than their benefits, or the employer reduces their hours, and you can still are seeking work.
Can you explain a situation where that might be the case?
If you worked 40 hours a week before and now you're working less than 40, you potentially could be eligible for partial unemployment benefits. If you're earning less than what you would in a regular unemployment benefits, if you do receive unemployment, you can also receive additional $600 from the CARES Act. You'd still be receiving your earnings, but keep in mind you need to be available all the hours that the employer is offering to you.
Okay. What about people who just get cut back a little bit, like 1 day each week?
When businesses cut back their hours between 20 and 40%, something like 1 or 2 days a week, they can sign up for what's the Workshare program.
And how does that work?
The employer signs up for the Workshare plan, then we review and approve it and see if they qualify for the program. The employer sends in their workers' hours and pays and what the pay would have been normally. For every week, the worker cuts back between 20 and 40%. They'd get an unemployment insurance claim payment and additional $600 from March 29th through July 25th.
So Workshare is really busy right now, just like all the other unemployment programs, right?
Absolutely, it's unbelievably busy. Since the COVID-19 closure started, we have approved more than 1,300 new Workshare plans. In the year before the COVID-19, we had only 168.
So there's obviously going to be some delays on those benefits like the other ones, right?
Unfortunately, yes. It's taken more than the normal 3 to 4 weeks to get the Workshare plan approved and paid. That's because we have so many, as I mentioned. We do have a lot more, and they're really large employers. And we do every Workshare program and claim manually. Just like the other types, we've hired many people in the Workshare program. Last year in that unit, we had less than 5 people processed in the Workshare program plans. At this point, we have more than 50.
Okay, let's turn now to what happens after a claim for regular unemployment benefits, not Workshare, just a regular claim gets put into our system. What happens next?
Well, before the COVID-19, it would take usually about 3 weeks or so to receive the first payment and pay those out. During that time, you still need to claim each week to facilitate the compensation to you. Currently, if you make a weekly certification using the weekly claim button or the voice response system, you won't get paid. We hear many times that people would put in just 1 week of benefits. It's just easy to see there are many closures out there, and people could still be at work the next week. We have to verify it in our system, though. The weekly claim is different button. It's the one down from the first initial claim filing on the system. A good way to think about claiming benefits is use the count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can't get to 5 if you don't count 3. So if you don't claim week 3, 4, and 5, then you're not going to get those 3 weeks. So it's imperative that you claim that. A good thing to follow is that have 2 appointments or notifications on your phone or what have you. One for Sunday to claim the week of benefits, and then one for Tuesday to ensure that your week has been claimed, because the agency processes its claims on Sunday and Monday, and then Tuesday you'll be able to see if your payment was sent out to you. Bottom line, claim each week. That protects your eligibility.
So that's something that can cause your claim to get stuck if you miss a weekly claim or have what we would call a break in reporting. What are some other things that happen a lot and cause delays in your claim?
Some people, unfortunately, their Social Security number is transposed in one form or another. If your Social Security number is transposed, we can't match it up to the wage records. Many people don't know for years. They don't look at their tax form for years, the payroll, and realize the first digit's transposed with the second digit. So we have to review those one-on-one and get the wages correctly reflected in our system.
There are other bigger reasons for claims getting held up too, right?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things is when people were initially filed their claims, they thought they'd be temporarily laid off. And for example, they thought they were going to go back to work on June 1st. Well, the system puts a line flag on their claim for June 1st. And when that week is claimed, there's a stop on the claim. We have to manually inactivate that. We have claims agents processing those as they find them. But right now there's thousands of claims and we have to look at those each individually.
We hear a lot about people who had earnings in other states and don't have a full year of work in Oregon. What happens to them?
Yes, we do have a lot of folks who do have combined wage claims. If you have earnings in other states, we're required by law to get that information if you have eligibility. PUA has to be your last option. If you have eligibility for a regular or a combined wage claim with Oregon, we have to wait for that. At this point, some states are 10 weeks out. Every state is struggling to process the claims right now, so we have to wait for them to transfer the wages to us for your monetarily eligible Oregon claim.
Thanks. What can we say about claims that need adjudication? Is that different or?
So we've been talking about things that keep your claim from processing or stopping payments. We know there are a lot of people who have had their initial claims for regular benefits processed, but they haven't been paid because they need to be adjudicated.
Okay. And what's happening to school employees right now? They are an example of this, right?
Yes. When school is out for recess or a break, we have to look at each individual school unemployment claim for the reasonable assurance. And what that means is, do they have an expectation to return to similar position or capacity and then after the recess period? We're required by law to look at these individually. Again, this is something we have to do on a case-by-case basis.
So there are about 99 of these, right? So there are more than 99 of these. More than the Project Focus 100 initial claims that aren't processed.
That's correct. There are a lot of reasons that a claim needs to be an adjudication. Any reason other than lack of work. Is your employer may dispute that you are out of work through no fault of your own. You may say you voluntarily resign. You may say you voluntarily resign because of a COVID reason. Choosing to quit or feel you had to quit because of COVID is something we still have to investigate.
What are the other reasons for adjudication?
Reported fraud or fraud on a past unemployment claim that wasn't paid back is something we have to investigate as well. If you have turned down a job or if your employer has called you back for work, we have to determine your eligibility for benefits if it gets reported to us. And we have to determine if you didn't have a COVID-19 reason to keep the claim the benefits and you turned down the job or failing to return to work.
So if your claim needs to be fully investigated, how long does that take?
Prior to the pandemic, it would take a handful of weeks to process. At this point, adjudication has taken between 10 and 12 weeks. Certainly apologize, and I understand the gravity and the painful that is causing folks. The agency has hired many new folks to adjudication, and they're getting trained up. In fact, this week we hired 40 new adjudicators, and we're hoping to speed up the process in terms of the adjudication process.
Great. Well, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
With that, let's go to questions in the Zoom Q&A box.
Okay. We have several questions. I'm trying to work my way through here. So the first one comes from Diana, and she wants to know how long is everybody supposed to continue checking the temporary layoff box in the online claim system?
If you're currently off work because of a COVID-19 reason and you expect to return to work, there is no period of time. There's no set time. If you're maintaining contact with the employer, you would continue to be on a TLO, temporary layoff. Just maintain contact with the employer.
Thank you. Next question is from Robert. Robert said that he moved from North Carolina last year, and around the 6th week of the claim got a letter stating it didn't have enough hours during that year. And it said to request a different base year. So can you just talk a little bit more about what happens when somebody has wages from another state and they're trying to get their claim in Oregon?
Sure.
What the kind of limitations are around that, or what could happen?
Well, as mentioned earlier, the first step is an initial state claim, North Carolina or Oregon. If we have wages or you have wages in another state, we request those wages. If for a regular claim, if you don't meet the requirements for a regular claim, there's a thing called an alternate base year claim. It's essentially looks back at a different period of time. So a normal claim is for the last 5 completed quarters. So if a person were to file a claim today, for example, the regular claim year is wages in 2019. If you were to file an alternate base year claim today, for example, your wage would be from April of 2019 through March of 2020. So we would look at those 2 options before a PUA claim.
All right. Thank you for that.
One other thing on that, though, the hours. Sometimes employers, just like us, we're all humans. We want to make sure you could check over your hours to see if what's reported by the employer is accurate. You might look at your payroll checks and see if the number of hours is accurate. Because in Oregon, you have to have 500 hours. So if you're close to that number, you may want to drill down on that.
And, oops. Next question. Oh, okay. So this is on Workshare. Can we talk a little bit more about Workshare? So is this a 20% pay cut or is it 20% hours cut? Can we talk a little bit more about just clarify that, and then talking about how that's something that qualifies, your employer has to do it, like you can't just ask for
Correct. It has. It's the program Workshare is facilitated by the employer. They apply for that, and the 20% is essentially 1 day. So if you're a 5-day employee, they reduce you to 4 days a week or 2 days a week, whatever the percentage is. There's more on our Workshare on our website, but in terms of the Workshare, it's a 1 day or 2 day or something along those lines. And it's a manual process that we mentioned, so it certainly is a challenging one to do. We have to manually key all the individual certifications. The customer or the claimant in this behalf does not turn any of the certifications in. It's something the employer is responsible for returning to us.
This one's from Sharon. How do you let the employment department know that your position at a school was eliminated due to the COVID-19 closure with the possibility for rehire when you return?
Well, certainly you can contact one of our claims agents to do that. We have many avenues to reach out to us. We have the emails, so we have email boxes that we can do so. You can also mail us information. We would then reach out to the employer or their representative to confirm that information.
Sorry, it's a funny question. That is one I'll have to answer later. Oh, here. So if somebody is stalled, this is from Linda. If somebody's stuck because of their return to work date, they thought they would go back to work and then they didn't. Is that something that they have to call for, or is that something that we'll clear up when we find it? Like, what's the way that that's kind of happening? Is it better if they try to reach out to us, or is it we know that do they keep claiming?
Well, there's two. One is you certainly can reach out to us, as I mentioned earlier, the email, to contact us by the phone or documentation. Two, we also have employers can reach out to us as well. We have a avenue for employers to reach out to us. They can also say, you know, the number of folks who have not returned to work. We as the agency don't have a specific process to look those over, because some employers are supposed to go back to work. So there's some people who said they're going back to work and have gone back to work, and there's some who have otherwise. But certainly there's those avenues to reach out to the employer, email. They can contact us as well.
This one is about it's about a message that you get on our claim system. Just what does it mean? So this is from Daniel. What does it mean when you get a message that says week claimed, not processed yet? Has several of those, and is just wondering what is that? Why do you get that, and what does it mean?
I believe that would be on a PUA probably.
It's on the online claim screen if you check your status.
Yes, if it's it means there's not processed. Well, my understanding would be that there's something holding your claim up. The PUA too, it's a weekly certification. Those are manually entered into the system. So versus the regular claim, it's a self-driven in terms of the regular UI. PUA is all manual processing.
Thank you. So here's a Workshare question, and I'm not sure that I know exactly what it is. I'll try to explain it as best as I can. So for vacation and sick benefits, so they're asking, I think, if their vacation and benefits will get cut. Like if you use part vacation time during your hours that you have during your 20 to 40 reduction, does that affect your Workshare payment?
Yes, it would be. It's just like a normal claim. If you're receiving vacation, holiday pay, etc., or PTO, it's still subject to reporting requirements. As long as you are in, obviously if you're on a Workshare, you're still engaged with the employer, so it would be needed to be reported.
So this is from an anonymous attendee. They're wanting to know, so like if they're self-employed, then they also had a very part-time job that they got laid off from before PUA was available. So they're getting regular unemployment insurance benefits, but they can make more. They would get a higher benefit amount if they were able to file for PUA. Can you talk about the interplay between those two?
Sure.
Because I think that's a lot of people have found, unfortunately, that they're kind of caught in that conundrum.
Yes, there's many people who took a part-time job making low wages where their self-employment is significantly more. PUA is the last option in terms of eligibility. If you have any eligibility for a regular claim, you're required by law to go that avenue. Even if that means you're on a weekly benefit amount of $151 on a regular claim. Unfortunately, the law requires that. I mean, it's in statute and it's part of the CARES Act, et cetera. You have to be on a regular claim. If you exhaust your regular claim, there's additional extensions out there right now. The PEUC, Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, certainly can pursue that avenue. But again, PUA is the last option. So if you have other eligibility, that's the avenue you have to pursue.
What do you know about, so if people are having a hard time getting through to us on the phone, and we know that even as we add more phone lines, can you talk about what you know in terms of like if your claim is being adjudicated or if there's something there, like are we reaching out to people? How might we be contacting them?
Well, anytime you claim benefits, you should get some sort of correspondence with us. The weekly claim, you claim a weekly benefits, you should get some sort of notification that we've received that, your claim is being investigated. There's an issue on your claim, it says essentially. But in terms of the claim, once we receive that, it's being queued up, waiting for being dispersed to an adjudicator. And as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, it's at this point, it's 10 to 12 weeks to get the file assigned to an adjudicator.
And when they do that, though, that adjudicator...
The adjudicator from that point forward then reaches out to the individual. And if I were calling you, I'd say, leave a message for you or call you directly. If I'm unable to leave a message, then I would send you a letter. Noteworthy, it's worthwhile. Many folks don't have their phone voicemail set up, or their phone is not accepting more voicemails because they're so full. So if I were in a position where I'm waiting for adjudicator, I'd make sure at least my voicemail's set up. That way I at least get a message, or my voicemail is allowing for messages. Certainly is a challenge we have at this point.
Oh, I know. Even though this isn't part of this webinar, a lot of people are asking about PUA, and I know you know about that. Can you tell us kind of what you know about processing? Somebody wants to know, are PUA weekly certifications currently getting processed? And other people want to know, like, what is the processing going like for PUA?
Well, the PUA unit has hired dozens and dozens of individuals, and they're being trained. The certification, they're hiring hundreds of individuals for the PUA. So the certification are a manual process, as I mentioned. Unlike the normal claim, the PUA, we have to look at each one of those and see if they meet the guidelines in terms of the COVID-19, because you're eligible for PUA if you're affected by the COVID-19. If you're no longer affected by COVID-19, then your eligibility for that program ends.
Thank you. So this is from an anonymous attendee as well. They furloughed nearly all of their staff, and the remaining employees received a 20% pay cut. It says pay cut. They're salaried employees. Do they qualify for Workshare? And regardless of whether or not anybody qualifies for Workshare, do you get back pay from the date that you got cut, or just from when your plan gets approved?
Well, when you apply for your plan is when it does. If it takes us 4 weeks or 5 weeks, we go back to the initial date your application period is. So in terms of, again, as I said earlier, we have 1,380 some odd Workshare programs, plans that we process. What was the other question? Do you get, what was that?
Oh, it was good. They wanted to know if there was a 20% pay cut as opposed to, I think, an hours.
Oh, cut. Yeah. It's the hours. I mean, that's the base, the salary. You're still, if you're working 40 hours, regardless of how much you're getting paid on any program, you're not eligible for any benefits.
And then, another thing people are asking about a lot seems to be on people's minds is that it's July now, and there are people who've been waiting for a while for their benefits, sure. And we all know that the $600, the extra $600 is set to expire July 25th.
Yes.
Similarly, if I am claiming benefits right now and I don't get it, any of it by July 25th, am I out that $600?
No, there's no set pool of money. If you're eligible, if it takes us 10 weeks or whatever it is, you're eligible for what you're eligible. There's no set, the money's not going to end. The period of payment will end, but if you get paid, for example, it takes until August 2nd to get paid, you're going to get all the eligible weeks back to include the $600.
Thank you. And someone wants to know if an adjudicator reaches out to you, are they giving you their direct number to call them back? Or
Oh,
do you
yes,
have to
yes.
call the dates?
No. It's a direct number. So it's a live person, and they'll give a specific number to contact them. So the other some things folks are curious, not that this is a question. Our phone that comes up, sometimes it shows spam and all that. So it's imperative that you answer those. It's us reaching out. It may be hard to get back and forth. So certainly, again, as I said, have your voicemail set up. Take a call if you can safely.
All right, I'm just going to do about 2 more questions here. We're almost at the end. Someone had a follow-up question about the forms they receive each week, asking about work status. Do they need to keep filling those out and returning them to us?
The work status. I guess I'm trying to understand what the work status would be. It'd be if they initially told us that they were going back to work, as I said, for example, June 1st, and now they're still claiming that's probably what it is, I want to guess.
Okay.
You can still return that. We're still processing paperwork. So when we get to that, if it takes us to process that to get to that, I certainly would do that. You can indicate, I expect to go back to work June 1st. However, my employer doesn't have a date for me to return at this point.
This is a question from Theodore. This is a really good question. So what about older claims that need to be adjudicated? If a claim is filed, say in April, and it was held up for an issue, should that claim be up for an earlier resolution by an adjudicator than one that was filed a few weeks ago? Absolutely.
I mean, it's essentially should be first come, first served. It's taken 10 to 12 weeks approximately to get the decisions out. Me and my colleague could be given the same file the same day. A decision from my colleague could be written today. When it may be a couple days here and there, but essentially it should be that way, first come, first serve. So again, about 10 weeks puts us about April. So if you filed in April, you should be getting assigned about this time.
All right. Oh, somebody just wrote, that answered my question. Thank you. I'm going to do a quick scan here for any one last question, and then I will stay on for a few more minutes to answer things like waiting week and other questions that people are putting in the chat box. Someone's asking about their 385E form. Can you tell us what that is, and can it be sent by email if the fax machines are busy?
Is that the self-employment form?
It's school employees.
Oh, school employees.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, school employee recess form. Every one of our forms is 385. It's just a matter of what letter goes after it.
E.
So the school employee recess form is for for the summer recess that needs to be returned. We will then actually, we'd still be adjudicating those to determine if you have reasonable assurance to return to similar capacity after the recess period. And just like the adjudication, that's part of the adjudication process for those school employees.
All right. Thank you so very much, Scott. And thank you to everybody for your questions. As I mentioned, I am going to stay on for another few minutes and try to answer more of the things that are related to other stuff that, like the waiting week and things like that. So thanks again for your participation. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you all.